In September 1989, Doug Muchler reported for duty. He was a counterintelligence officer stationed at Fort Richardson, just outside Anchorage, Alaska. His job was investigating espionage and terrorism, so his first stop was the map room. He needed to get the lay of the land. Doug grew up in Ohio, so learning about the rugged terrain and wilderness of Alaska would take a lot of studying. Alaska is a big place, almost 700,000 square miles, twice the size of Texas. Doug spread out a few maps across the giant table in the center of the room. He scanned the maps. They showed mountain ranges, rivers, lakes, cities, old mining towns, the typical stuff. But then something caught his eye. On a map of Denali National Park, there was an area no bigger than his thumb that was whited out. Doug grabbed a magnifying glass. There were no features. About 60 miles west of Mount McKinley was a small zone labeled, "This area not surveyed to date." Doug thought this was odd. The entire state of Alaska was definitely surveyed, every inch of it. How could this tiny patch be not surveyed? He set the question aside. He was a chief warrant officer in military intelligence. He figured if he needed to know, he'd know. Still, something about that location haunted him. And 3 years later, he'd find out why. It was late 1992, and Doug Muchler was killing time with a few dozen off-duty soldiers. Someone shushed the group and turned up the TV. The local news was running a story about an underground nuclear detonation in China. It was so powerful that it sent shockwaves in the Earth's crust all the way to Alaska. But that wasn't the story. When seismologists analyzed the data, they saw the cross-section of a huge object about 100 feet below the surface in central Alaska. It was a pyramid, a huge pyramid, bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza, 550 feet tall from the top to the base. The news showed the pyramid's location on a map. Doug wasn't sure, but he could swear it was right in the middle of the location marked, "This area not surveyed to date." He ran to the map room. He was right. Next stop, his quarters. He set his VCR to record the 11 o'clock news. He needed to be sure. The late night news came and went without a single mention of the pyramid. Doug called a few news junkies he knew. Nobody heard anything about it. The next day, with military intelligence credentials, Doug went to the local news station. The station manager said there was no such story and had no idea what Doug was talking about. They returned to his office. Doug stood in the lobby for a minute, confused. Not only did he see the news story, but almost 40 other soldiers did too. The station manager's strange behavior made Doug feel that something wasn't right.
Had a man in black stop by.
Well, that's what Doug thought. But this visit was off the books. He had no authority here. As Doug was heading out, he heard a voice behind him. It was one of the younger employees. The kid nervously gestured for Doug to come over, so he did. The younger man was clearly rattled. He looked around, lowered his voice, and said the story was true.
Look, I'm not supposed to say anything. I could get fired for this, but this just isn't sitting right with me.
Doug acted like he wasn't sure what the kid was talking about, but he was pretty sure what he was talking about.
That story about the underground pyramid is real. We ran it during last night's 6 o'clock broadcast. A few hours later, a couple of scary guys in suits came by the station and grilled my boss in his own office. Next thing I know, the story is pulled from the 11 o'clock lineup, and all the tapes of the story were confiscated. It's all gone.
Doug asked why. Although again he knew the answer, he just wanted to hear this kid say it.
After the suits left, the news director said we had to kill the story because it involved a Chinese nuclear test. It was a matter of national security. We were told to forget about it. The nuclear test, the pyramid, all of it. Pretend it never happened or face criminal charges. That's all I know.
The kid begged Doug to keep him out of it, and Doug agreed. Again, as an experienced intelligence officer, Doug knew these tactics. He also knew he shouldn't press the issue with his superiors, so he didn't. But he was annoyed.
I was mad. I went back to the office in formation that night. I told everybody what I'd found out, and the guys in the unit were like, wait a minute, we watched it. What do you mean they didn't run it? Same thing I was saying.
Doug continued his normal duties at Fort Richardson, but he couldn't stop thinking about that pyramid. He was frustrated, but there was no way to get more information. Then, a year later, Doug was transferred to Fort Meade in Maryland, home of the National Security Agency, and that would provide an opportunity. In 1993, Doug Muchler was transferred to Fort Meade, Maryland. Fort Meade is known for being the headquarters of the NSA. Doug said he wasn't working for the NSA, but for a unit nearby.
Oh, he was totally working for the NSA.
Probably. Fort Meade was also home to a giant warehouse of files. Row after row, shelf after shelf, floor after floor. It was a giant archive of government activity, and much of it top secret.
Ooh, like where they keep the Ark and all that stuff?
No, this place was just files.
Well, I'd still like to snoop around there.
So would I. Doug played it cool. He introduced himself to the archivist and showed him his credentials. Doug asked if there were any files about archaeological sites in Alaska. He didn't say pyramid or anything like that. He kept his questions non-specific. The archivist didn't blink. He wrote down a few numbers and handed Doug a slip of paper. The floor, the row, the shelf. Doug was getting closer. He found the Alaska files. He pulled a few and settled into a reading room. But he wouldn't get the chance to learn anything.
Here come the men in black.
And I had just sat down, and these two guys came. You can feel someone standing behind you. And these two goons go, hey, you don't have a need to know for that information.
Doug turned around and asked what they meant. He was just looking at archaeological sites in Alaska. They said, we know what you're looking for. You need to leave the building immediately. Doug asks why.
They don't want us messing with them up there anymore. They don't want you messing with them up there. They don't want us, anybody, messing with them.
Wait. Messing with who up there?
Well, that's what Doug wanted to know, but the two guys...
Men in black?
Right. They realized they just said too much. Doug left the warehouse, resumed his duties, and kept quiet. But after he left the service, he went public with the story. It turned out that not only is the pyramid real, the military knows exactly where it is. They also know what the pyramid is.
How?
Because they're the ones operating it.
Yahtzee!
Marty Johnson shook his head and quietly laughed. As an engineer in the Navy during World War II, he worked on more than his share of top-secret projects. But this was something else. He was flown from Omaha, Nebraska to Unalakleet, Alaska, wherever that was, and then rushed onto a white bus with blacked-out windows. On the bus were a few engineers and technicians. Once everyone was settled, the bus started driving east. Nobody was told where they were going or specifically what they were doing. And honestly, Marty didn't care. This was exciting. While most of the passengers seemed nervous, Marty was smiling ear to ear. He felt like a character in a spy novel. After the war, Marty was recruited by Western Electric Manufacturing. Well, technically, he worked for Bell Labs, created from the engineering department of Western Electric and half owned by AT&T. When offered the job, Marty didn't need much convincing. He'd be working on highly classified projects for the military. His specialty was electrical engineering, but Marty Johnson could build or fix anything you threw at him. He liked a challenge, and working on cutting-edge tech was right up his alley. In the late 40s, he worked with transistors. These little devices revolutionized electronics. He had no idea how Bell came up with the idea, but wow, did they change everything.
Aliens gave them the transistors.
Maybe. Well, here it was, 1959, and Marty felt he was helping invent the future. He couldn't tell his family where he was or what he was doing, but they understood that his work, whatever it was very important. After a 6-hour bumpy ride, the bus finally stopped. When the door opened, the cold Alaska air rushed in like a punch in the face. Stepping out of the bus was even more shocking. After 6 hours in the dark, the bright white Alaskan landscape was overpowering. Marty lifted his collar, shielded his eyes, and walked with his colleagues. Once his eyes adjusted, Marty became confused. There was nothing here. Ice, snow, mountains, that's it. Then he heard a shout from up ahead. Two men in uniform stood next to what looked like a concrete shed in the middle of nowhere. Marty would need answers soon. The cold wind was taking the fun out of this adventure. The group shuffled into the shed. The officers came in last and closed the door. In unison, everyone sighed in relief. One of the officers told the group to grab the rail and hold on. He yanked a metal gate across the door and pushed a button. With a quick jerk, the platform began dropping. Now Marty understood. The shed was just an entrance to this elevator shaft. As the elevator descended, the temperature warmed a bit. It was still cold enough to see his breath, but at least they were spared from the biting wind. And after daydreaming a bit, Marty realized they'd been going down for a long time. The elevator finally stopped. The officer opened the gate and gestured for everyone to step out. Marty followed the group out into the hallway. It looked like every military office building he'd ever been in. The gray concrete floor and walls painted green beige, the constant buzzing of overhead fluorescent lights, all too familiar. The group started moving again. Marty felt like he was on a museum tour, just following the crowd. They passed plenty of doors, so this place must be bigger than it looked. The doors had no names, only numbers. Clean, simple, efficient. Definitely military. The officer up front raised his voice a bit so everyone could hear. Before they started their 4-week orientation, they would get to see the project. Finally, Marty thought. Judging by the murmurs in the group, he wasn't the only one becoming impatient. After making a few turns here and there, they reached the end of the hallway. They were standing in front of a huge steel door. It had to be 15 feet high and wide enough to drive a car through. The officer grabbed a red phone receiver off the wall and spoke into it. Marty couldn't hear, but he chuckled to himself as he imagined the officer saying, "Open sesame." From somewhere, there was the sound of metal on metal, and the door began to slowly swing open. Not only was the door tall and wide, it had to be a foot thick. What could be in here that required security measures like this? Was it nukes? Marty hoped it wasn't nukes. They walked through the door into a giant cavern. Then Marty saw it, and everything made sense. The blacked out windows, the secrecy, the security. The officer proudly announced, "Gentlemen, welcome to the Dark Pyramid." In the spring of '78, Lee Pearson was at the Unalakleet Airport trading war stories with a fellow vet. Lee retired and became a teacher, but his new friend, a helicopter pilot, was still in the service. The pilot could tell Lee was missing the excitement of the old days, so he made him an offer. He was making a quick run into the infamous Alaska Triangle.
Lee, I got something that will get your blood pumping. We're taking some important equipment out to a secret base near Denali. You know Mount McKinley? We'll be in and out in 4 hours. You want to tag along?
Lee said absolutely. They hopped in the helicopter and started flying due east. After just under 2 hours of flight time, the pilot gave Lee a heads up.
Okay, we're just about 5 miles out. Things are about to get weird. Our instruments are going to go crazy. You're going to hear all kinds of alarms. Don't panic. And we'll go VFR the rest of the way, and we'll be fine.
VFR?
Visual flight rules. Basically, you turn off autopilot, keep the ground in sight, and keep your eyes open for obstacles.
Got it.
Then the helicopter's electronics went haywire. The radar screen went out. The compass needle was spinning like a fan. Lee was visibly nervous. Then all the power in the helicopter, the instruments, lights, everything went black. But the helicopter kept flying. A few minutes later, it touched down. Within seconds, a ground crew was refueling them, with the engine running and the rotor spinning. Lee looked around. There were a couple of small guardhouses with towers. He saw 2 or 3 Quonset huts. Boxes of equipment were piled here and there. Razor wire was everywhere. Lee looked up. Overhead, a C-130 was flying tight circles over the area. Then 6 men in black uniforms start yanking crates of cargo. Lee, being a military man himself, notices the uniforms have no insignia, no unit patches, no rank, no name tape, no identification of any kind. There are men around the perimeter of the landing zone. They're heavily armed and aiming at the helicopter. Lee looks behind them. There's a Jeep parked just a few yards away. On top of it is a .50 caliber machine gun. It's loaded, manned, and aimed right at them. Lee glances nervously at the pilot, who gives him a look that says, "Relax, this is normal." In 3, maybe 4 minutes, they're airborne and headed west, back to the airport. Once they get about 5 miles from the site, all the instruments come back on and everything is working perfectly. Lee asks the pilot, "What the hell was that?" The pilot looks at Lee, taps his headset, and holds his finger in front of his mouth.
They'd be listening to the radio.
Yep. At a small bar near the airport, the 3 men sit at a quiet table in the back. A waitress drops off a round of beers. Lee grabs one, takes a sip, and says, "Okay, let's hear it."
That place is more secret than the Manhattan Project. Nobody's supposed to know it even exists. Deep underground is a giant pyramid made of black stone. They think it's stone anyway.
Lee asks who would build a giant pyramid underground and why.
All they know is that it's thousands of years old. They've had techs and engineers working there since the 50s. It's a power generator of some kind. And this thing puts out a lot of juice.
This sounded crazy to Lee. He asked how much power does the pyramid generate? The pilot said, enough to power the whole country. Pyramids as power plants. Sounds like science fiction, but if made of the right materials, it could possibly work. I have an entire episode on how the Great Pyramid of Giza could have created energy, and there's scientific evidence that supports this theory.
Pyramid power, link below.
Marty Johnson was very specific about the site and the technology. He said the pyramid was He said the pyramid is 550 feet tall, with the base 700 feet below the surface. The angles of the pyramid were 48 degrees, not 45. I don't know why this is important, but Marty said it was. There were enclosed control rooms at each corner. The control rooms measured the energy flowing through the pyramid. The purpose of the project was energy distribution. If they ever got this to work, we don't know. But Marty Johnson's son said his father built a replica of the pyramid made out of aluminum. He ran a small amount of voltage through the pyramid, and that energy was then magnified. This mini pyramid produced more than enough electricity to power their entire house and farm. It's been theorized that the pyramids in Alaska, Egypt, Indonesia, and other places formed an ancient energy grid. They pulled electricity out of the zero-point field and transmitted it around the planet, maybe even around the solar system.
Free energy cover-up, link below.
Right. I have an entire episode about inventors who discovered ways to pull energy from the quantum field that exists everywhere.
And what happened to those inventors?
All died of mysterious causes. So, is the Dark Pyramid an energy device? We don't know. We have to find it first. And some people think they have. When Doug Muchler went public with his story, he used the perfect conduit. He contacted Linda Moulton Howe. If you follow UFO news or you're a fan of Coast to Coast, you know who Linda is. In case you don't, she's an investigative journalist who's been covering UFOs, aliens, and conspiracies for a long time. She actually won an Emmy for one of her UFO documentaries.
Yo, Linda is the UFO OG.
She is. She's a legend in the field. She also does her homework. So when Doug emailed her, she got copies of his ID, addresses, and phone numbers. But most importantly, she wanted a copy of his DD-214.
Oh, well, obviously.
Oh, you know what a DD-214 is?
Of course I do.
Well, then tell the people.
No. I don't want to step on your fins. You go ahead.
DD Form 214 is a certificate from the U.S. military that lists everything about your service. The date and place of duty, the date and place of release, assignments, rank, education, MOS, job specialty, decorations, medals, everything. Doug Muchler produced this document. He was telling the truth. Once Linda reported on the pyramid, other people started coming forward with their own accounts of the Dark Pyramid. Marty Johnson and Lee Pearson's stories come from their sons who heard them firsthand. Linda heard from a retired naval captain stationed in Alaska. He noticed that aircraft communications always malfunctioned when flying over a certain area, east of Unalakleet and west of Mount Denali. Radar showed massive electromagnetic energy coming from the area. When the captain saw the report about the Chinese nuclear test, he thought the pyramid could be the problem, so he did the logical thing. He reported it to his superior officer.
Stupid.
Soon after, he was told to be quiet or face court-martial.
Told ya.
Lee Pearson's son Bruce believes his father's story. In fact, he thinks his father gave him enough information to find the location of the Dark Pyramid. So Bruce took that information, went to Alaska, hired a plane, and he might have found it. Bruce Pearson's father said the Dark Pyramid was east of Unalakleet and west of Mount Denali, so Bruce hired a pilot to take him to that location. If the base was out there, there would be signs of human activity. After almost 2 hours of flying, they came across a patch of land that looked squared off.
Go back over that spot again. Yeah. That's not natural. That is not natural.
It's not a perfect square, but there are right angles and straight lines. When they came around for another pass, they found the remains of an old road, a road that doesn't appear on any maps. And the most amazing discovery of all, they found an old airstrip. This also does not appear on any maps. So at some point in the past, somebody was using that road and airstrip for something. The nearest marked road is almost 100 miles away. This area is also pretty close to coordinates sent to Linda Moulton Howe by another retired Navy officer. This is the location. Using Google Earth, some people claim they can see an outline of a former compound or structure. I'm not sure I can make anything out, but I linked the coordinates below if you want to see for yourself. One man actually hiked to the coordinates to see with his own eyes. In May 2020, Nathan Campbell hired a plane to fly him to Carrie Lake in Denali National Park, just a few miles from the pyramid's alleged location. He told the pilot to pick him up at the same location in 4 months.
4 months?
Yep, but Nathan was prepared. He had good gear, plenty of food, and a satellite communicator to let him radio his family. But after just a few weeks, he stopped checking in. A search team found his campsite. His gear was still there, but no Nathan. He kept a diary. The last entry said, "Went to get water." He's never been found. Some speculate that he actually was found, that he discovered the location of the Dark Pyramid and was deleted. But something to keep in mind, the location of the Dark Pyramid is in the Alaska Triangle.
Ah! The underground base!
Yep. For 20 years, the CIA operated Project Stargate. This was essentially a psychic spy project. Stargate did a lot of different things, but its primary focus was remote viewing. Remote viewing is projecting your consciousness to any place on Earth.
Project Stargate link below. But if you were psychic, you already knew that.
One of the most talented remote viewers was Pat Price. Pat was able to see an underground base hidden inside a mountain right in the middle of the Alaska Triangle, Mount Hayes.
Mount motherfucking Hayes.
Okay, that's enough.
Mount motherfucking Hayes link below.
Pat discovered that the base was operated by humans and aliens working together. I bring this up because Linda Moulton Howe found a witness who remote viewed the Dark Pyramid. She first saw a small building. She went in. Then she saw an elevator that went hundreds of feet down. She followed that. Then she found herself in what looked like a military facility. There was a lab. Then she saw a huge black sloped wall. She pulled away a bit. It was the Dark Pyramid. All around the pyramid was equipment, lights, people working. It was very busy. She scanned the area and found a network of hallways and tunnels. She saw offices, sleeping areas, a kitchen. Finally, she found herself with a group of people being taken on a tour by the facility's leader. She was stunned. The tour guide was not human. It was human-like, but definitely not human. Then she learned the true purpose of the Dark Pyramid. It is an energy device. It's a charging station for UFOs. There have been over 6,500 UFO sightings in the Alaska Triangle. It's one of the most active UFO hotspots in the world, and now we know why. The craft are using the pyramid for energy, and that's why the military never got it to work, and they never will. The aliens in charge don't work for us. We work for them. When Linda Moulton Howe exposed the Dark Pyramid in 2012, the story was a phenomenon, and it's easy to see why. We've got credible witnesses and evidence of human activity in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. Thousands of people really do go missing in Alaska every year. There really are thousands of UFO sightings there. But is the Dark Pyramid real? Well, let's dissect it. Our first witness is Douglas Muchler, a former military intelligence officer. Now, believers in the story say he's a very credible witness. He's provided documents that prove he is exactly who he says he is. That's true. But if you follow this channel, you know how I feel about whistleblowers from military intelligence. I don't trust them. I'm not saying every one of them or any one of them is lying, but some of them are. We know Richard Doty's shady history of spreading disinformation within the UFO community. Hal Puthoff, Christopher Mellon, Luis Elizondo, David Grush, and now Doug Muchler, all whistleblowers, all connected to military intelligence. Now, I'm not saying Doug Muchler is lying, but I do view his story skeptically. In his defense, the Chinese did detonate an underground nuke on May 22, 1992, but that's 5 or 6 months earlier than Doug claims. But he waited 20 years to come forward. Maybe some of his details are hazy. He said almost 40 other soldiers saw the news report about the underground pyramid. None of those soldiers have come forward. If you go to Linda's website, earthfiles.com, you could see the original emails Doug sent to her. The details change a little over time. At some point, he says China informed the UN about the underground test. That didn't happen. When the nuke went off in May, the world was taken by surprise, and the UN condemned the test. Still, he says this happened late November, early December 1992. There was no nuclear test done then. There just wasn't. So there'd be no news report of it. But what's interesting is there was a major earthquake in Egypt in October 1992. The earthquake was a 5.3, the highest ever recorded in the area. At least 500 people died. The UN did come in to provide aid and monitor any damage to the ancient sites. There was news coverage of that for weeks because people were worried about the Sphinx and the pyramids. Now, it's possible, it's even likely, that Doug is conflating a few different memories. And there's no shame in that. Human memory is notoriously bad. But what about Lee Pearson and his son Bruce? Well, we only have Bruce's word. Same with Marty Johnson. These were real people, no doubt, but they haven't given us any physical evidence, only their word. And what about remote viewers? Do you believe them? For the most part, I don't. But I do believe Pat Price saw something under Mount... Not only do I believe in Pat Price's ability, I believe he was killed because of it. Check out the episode on Project 8200. I get into all the details. The last and most important name in the story is Linda Moulton Howe. I followed her work for years. She was great whenever she was on Coast to Coast with Art Bell. But she is a true believer. Yes, she does her homework, but she goes into a story believing it, and she focuses on investigating details to support the story. Lots of UFO and paranormal researchers do this. Almost all of them do. I approach these stories from the other side. I go in not believing, but I don't focus on debunking. I honestly try to find as much evidence as I can to defend a hard-to-believe story. Sometimes after researching, I'll change my mind. I thought the hollow moon theory was nonsense until I did an episode on it. Now I'm pretty sure the moon is weird. I thought crop circles were 100% man-made, but after researching, I can tell you this for sure. Almost 100% are man-made. but there are a few that can't be explained or debunked. They just can't. I don't know if there's a pyramid buried in Alaska, but if there is, I'm pretty sure it can generate energy, just like the Great Pyramid of Giza did when the Anunnaki built it 130,000 years ago. Prove me wrong. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. My name is AJ, that's Hecklefish.
Jump up, and get down.
This has been the Y-Files. If you had fun or learned anything, do him a favor, like, subscribe, comment, share. That stuff really helps him out. And like most topics we cover on this channel, today's was recommended by you. So if there's a story you'd like to see or learn more about, go to theyfiles.com/tips. Remember, the Y-Files is also a podcast. Twice a week, I post deep dives into the stories we cover here on the channel. I also post episodes that wouldn't be allowed on the channel. It's called the Y-Files Operation Podcast. It's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Now, if you need more Y-Files in your life, and not everybody does, but if you do, check out our Discord. We just hit 50,000 members. So there's someone on there 24/7, and they're into the same weird stuff that we are. It's a great community, it's a lot of fun, and it's free to join. Now, if you want to follow what's going on with the Y-Files, check out our production calendar. It's at theyfiles.com/cal. There we post our episode schedule, upcoming podcasts, live streams, all that stuff. Special thanks to our patrons who make the Y-Files happen. Every episode is dedicated to you. I don't deserve the support you give, but I'm truly grateful to have it. And if you'd like to support, consider becoming a member on Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to perks like videos early with no commercials, access to merch only available to members, plus you get 2 private live streams every week just for you. My camera's on, your camera's on. It's fun. Another great way to support the channel is grab something for the Y-File store.
Grab a Hecklefish t-shirt or a fistable coffee mug with my face on it, cause you'll be like fisting my face, I guess. Or you could just use it to drink a delicious beverage, or grab a hoodie with my face on it, or get one of these squeezy stuffed toys, talking animal fish, Hecklefish fish toys.
Those are the plugs, and that's enough for today. Until next time, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated.
In Area 51, a secret code inside the Bible said I would. I love my UFOs and paranormal fun, as well as music, so I'm singing it like I should. But then another conspiracy theory becomes the truth, my friends, and it never ends. No, it never ends. I feel the crap cat and got stuck inside Mel's hole with MK Ultra, of being only too aware. Did Stanley Kubrick fake the moon landing alone on a film set, or were the shadow people there? The Roswell aliens just fought the smiling man, I'm told, and his name was Cold. And I can't believe I'm dancing with the fish. Hecklefish on Thursday nights with AJ2, and the Wi-Fi's helping me all through the night. All I ever wanted was to just hear the truth, so the Wi-Fi's on repeat all through the night. The Mothman sightings and the solar storm still come to Agatha, the secret city underground. Mysterious number stations, planet Serpo 2, Project Stargate, and what the Dark Watchers found. We're in a simulation, don't you worry though. The Black Knight satellite, it told me so. I can't believe